Good evening, I'm Anthony Robart. This is Crimebeat. Tonight, a seemingly friendly older man they met online.
I trusted him.
Who made them fight for their lives.
He handed me the drink right away, and I guzzled it. He kind of sat on my chest, which constricted my breathing.
So he's reached over like this with his left hand. Turns from a smile to a scowl. And he's just squishing my throat. He's not choking me, he's strangling me.
While rumors swirled of a serial killer preying on men from Toronto's gay village.
3 men mysteriously disappeared. Shortly after, news that another man is missing.
As the bodies started piling up, it got pretty bad. I was exasperated.
I said, how close was I to being killed? And that's when her eyes welled up with tears.
And now, here's Catherine McDonald with I Survived a Serial Killer.
I met him back 2011, I guess, 2010, 11. And he contacted me on Silver Daddies. And I've been with a few guys. It's just along the lines of, I like your profile, you know, type thing. Do you like mine?
Isaac was living on his own in Toronto, enjoying a pretty low-key lifestyle.
Just a guy who went to work, came home, you know, ate his dinner, watched some TV, fell asleep. Couldn't wait for the weekends to go do something extracurricular.
He thought this guy seemed nice, so he responded.
All I really knew was his name was Bruce.
Online, Bruce projected an image of himself as fun and laid back, like when he posted a video of himself doing the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge.
Okay, go.
Soon, the two were hooking up, and for several years, they saw each other on and off.
Was he gentle? What was he like as a
he was
partner?
always gentle. We never had a problem. After sex, we would talk a little bit. He told me that he was divorced. He had a couple of kids growing up and stuff. One of the important things I did want to say was Bruce never came out on his own. I think one of the reasons why marriage was ruined is because he was outed. This is what he told me. This is straight from Bruce.
Isaac never thought of Bruce as his boyfriend. Just casual meetups, usually at Isaac's place.
He was also good at showing up unannounced. He'd done that many times. He did it on Christmas too, a couple of times, and he'd worn a Santa uniform, or his costume. You know, yeah.
So he seemed a little bit aggressive.
In that attitude, yeah.
Because of what he's about to tell us, and because he is still in the closet, we've agreed to protect his identity. He's asked us to call him Isaac.
So tell me about that day. Did he call you? Did you make a date, or what happened?
There was many, many times I would come home and he would be sitting in the driveway from my building waiting for me to get home, and he's done that many times. And as I'm parking, he would show up. He would just pop my head in either of my windows and say hi, you know. And that's what he did that day.
It's June 20th, 2016.
I said, well, I just got home from work. You know, I'm dirty and stuff, and I need to take a shower and all that. I said, let's go upstairs. And he goes, no, I don't want to go upstairs this time. Let's just do it in the van. It seemed a little intriguing at the time. It was like, you know, it's risque, right? So that's exciting.
Isaac says he tells Bruce he'll meet him at a parking lot up the road once he's taken his shower. This is the dashcam video showing Isaac arriving at the plaza where they agreed to meet around 6:30 that night. Bruce was inside his red minivan when Isaac pulled up.
Well, as I pulled in, he was standing outside. pulled the side door open, and waited there. It says, get in, get in, get in. And just go lay down. I laid down, and it was a small, narrow area, and he had the very rear seat pulled out, so there was a little bit more room, not much, but and there's that fur coat, some tarps, and a fur coat on top. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, nice, he laid down the fur coat so I wouldn't get dirty.
This time, there is no small talk. Bruce is suddenly on top of Isaac with his full body weight.
And then I just as he grabbed my arm, he just grabbed my throat. I know he was going to kill me.
Coming up, Isaac fights for his life. And a call to 911 that has far-reaching implications. After meeting a man named Bruce online and seeing him on and off for several years, Isaac has agreed to a quick hookup in the back of Bruce's van. But the date quickly takes a sinister turn. Now back to Catherine McDonald with I Survived a Serial Killer.
So he's reached over like this with his left hand.
Yeah.
And turns from a smile to a scowl. He had a scowl on his face and a look of anger, hatred, and with his full force of his hand, open hand, he grabs my neck. Oh man, that hurt.
I first met Isaac in March 2019. He had reached out to me and said he was willing to talk about how he had been attacked. Today, the details of what happened to him back in 2016 are no less vivid.
I'm just laying there. I tried to move my arm, my right arm, but he's right on top of it. I can't pull it out. The guy weighs like 280 pounds, eh? And I kind of want to pull away to my left because he's on my right, and that's not happening. No way. He's got me locked down. And he's just squishing my throat. And he's not choking me, he's strangling me.
Isaac says 30 seconds go by.
At that point, I'm in survival mode.
Another minute and a half.
I managed to get the words out, what do you want? And I never got an answer. I started seeing these little black dots. So I knew I was running out of breath, you know. Also at the same time, I'm thinking, I guess that's the end of me. At that point, there's nothing but fear going through me, you know. And he's still on top of me. He's still strangling me. And you know when they say your life flashes before your eyes? Well, it does. And the last thing I thought of was my mom, because she was sick. And I was thinking, it would break her heart.
More minutes pass as Isaac fights for his life. And then, Isaac makes his move.
Being on my stomach, I managed to use the rest of the muscles in my shoulders and stuff like that, and pull my chest up a little bit to pull my right arm out. And that's when he let go, when he saw my hand. And that's when I pushed up, and he flew. I was kind of in a rage. I was angry. So I just grabbed the sliding door of the van and got out. And I'm screaming at him, and I'm yelling at him. I even said to him, you're under arrest. I'm calling the cops.
Yeah. Somebody just tried to strangle me. Yeah.
I need to know what happened.
Some guy just tried to strangle me to death.
He knew I was on the phone with the police because my vehicle's right beside his, so he can hear it over the speakers.
Okay, he's going south now.
So he beat it out of there, and I tried to chase him.
And I need you to pull over and talk to me.
911 told me to pull over, let the police get him. I gave him the plate number and stuff.
What happened?
We're inside the guy's van. His name's Bruce. Known him for a while. We try to make out once in a while. And all of a sudden, he just grabbed me by the throat. He threw my arm behind my back.
Isaac returns to the parking lot to wait for police. And police come and take his statement.
And you wanted him charged?
No, I didn't say anything about that. I just said, you tell Bruce to stay away, because it's his word against my word.
What Isaac would later learn is that Bruce had also spoken to the police that day after the incident.
He's trying to cover his tracks.
Bruce had driven himself to the police station. He was arrested and gave a statement. Police ran a criminal record check on Bruce, but a previous assault conviction from 2003 did not show up because he had received a pardon. Bruce was released without charges. And then, for a year and a half, Isaac says he did not hear anything from police or from Bruce.
It's here in Toronto's gay village where police say 3 men mysteriously disappeared.
Quite unusual. Look at the circumstances surrounding this case. We've not heard or seen from them for several years now.
The men had been reported missing between September 2010 and October 2012. Skandaraja Navaratnam, Abdul Basir Faizi, and Majid Kayhan.
Police now believe the disappearances may be connected. All 3 men did not know each other, but they have similar appearances, and they were known to frequent the area around Church and Wellesley.
There seems to be a thread in these 3 disappearances. It is unsettling, I think, for a lot of people.
This police spokesperson says an 18-month investigation called Project Houston into those 3 men wrapped up in 2014. It was never resolved.
I was hoping the police would put more effort in trying to solve this mystery. It's really worrisome.
The first time I remember becoming aware was the 3 posters were up in a row of the first 3 victims. And I was walking with a friend, and he actually said, "Oh, it's a serial killer."
Sean Cribben lives in Toronto's gay village. When he was younger, he had been named Mr. Leatherman Toronto and had become something of a local celebrity. He has Parkinson's now, but isn't letting the diagnosis slow him down. It had been several years since Project Houston ended, and Sean remembers the start of 2017 fondly. Sean and his partner have an open relationship, and so Sean is online using dating apps to meet up with other men who share his sexual interests, including a love of leather. Sean had started communicating with one older man in particular, a man he knows only as Bruce.
I didn't know he was a landscaper because he told me that was why he was so busy. So certainly from the spring until winter set in, he was hopping.
Both had busy schedules, but they finally managed to coordinate a time to meet in person, except Sean accidentally oversleeps. It's May the 1st.
So you knew he was upset?
Yeah.
Shortly after, news that another man is missing.
He's our building super, and he's super responsible. He's the kind of guy that will text you back within half an hour, and he didn't that evening.
On Facebook, I was alerted the very next day, his cat hadn't been fed. Does anyone know where he is?
And did you think anything of that as far as maybe the serial killer again, or?
Well, I didn't connect it back to the first ones, but at that time I thought there had been some sort of foul play.
Just learning what...
Homicide detective David Dickinson was brought on as lead investigator of a new task force, Project Prism, to look into the disappearances of Andrew Kinsman and Salim Essen, who had been missing since the spring. Both Andrew and Salim were openly gay and frequented the village. They were active on social media dating sites, but police had yet to determine any links between them.
It was surveillance video that made the headway. Once we were able to narrow down Andrew's timeline and discover that it appeared that Andrew stopped communicating with the world around 3 o'clock on June 26th, we observed a van driving down the street.
Andrew Kinsman was last seen getting into a red van and had not been seen or heard from since. It's almost a month later, and Sean and Bruce have managed to set a new date to see each other. And Bruce has offered to come pick Sean up.
I really remember how sunny it was that day, because as I was crossing the parking lot to go to the meeting spot, I was thinking, oh, it's so nice to have this luxury to, on a weekday, to be able to do something so naughty and luxurious, I guess, like, for lack of a better term.
So you're in the red Dodge Caravan?
Yes,
Minivan?
Yeah.
What do you think when you look at him?
I trusted him, like, right from the beginning. I think communicating over 3 years builds trust.
Coming up, how that trust would soon be broken. Rumors of a potential serial killer are circulating, with 5 men reported missing over the course of 7 years. 2 separate task forces have been set up, but so far, police have no leads. Meanwhile, Sean Crimebeat has met up with a man through an online dating site, and they are driving to the guy's place. Sean knows him only as Bruce. Now back to Catherine McDonald with I Survived a Serial Killer.
I said, so there's a serial killer in the neighborhood. I wonder who it is.
What did he say?
He didn't say anything to that. But then the conversation went from that to his landscaping business. Then from there, it went to the Mall Santa gig. And again, I, in hindsight, think this was a way of building trust, because my immediate response in hindsight is, ooh, creepy. But at the time, I thought, oh, community service, he's good with children. And he's Santa Claus. Like, those are 3 very positive attributes to have. I think it was a tactic.
They arrive at Bruce's apartment building in the northeast end of Toronto.
Pulled into the parking garage, and just before we got out of the van, he said, so nobody knows you're here? And I said, no, I didn't tell my partner, but I'll tell him when I get home tonight. It will be okay. And then off we went up.
They go up to the 19th floor and enter Bruce's apartment.
He directed you right to the bedroom?
Yeah.
The 2 shared an interest in leather and role-playing. Sometimes Sean would enhance his stimulation by taking small doses of GHB, also known as G, or liquid ecstasy. It's a drug that slows down your breathing and heart rate.
So I pulled out the bottle, and because I had the guilt of running late, I was trying to make up time. I had to go to the bathroom. So I said, this is the G, here's the measuring device, a cap. I said, pour 1, don't pour 2, because that will put me to sleep. And then as I handed over to him, I said to him, if you were the serial killer, this is the drug you would want to use.
GHB is also known as the date rape drug and is illegal in Canada. Sean leaves Bruce alone to mix his drink, and he goes into the bathroom to freshen up.
I came out, he handed me the drink right away, and I guzzled it, which is how you do it. It was probably about 10 minutes of just kind of rolling around. But he was definitely aggressive. Now, I've made no consent to be bound or any of that stuff. And then he started to, he kind of sat on my chest, which constricted my breathing. And I have breathing difficulties already. So that was, now, as this is all starting to progress, the G only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to hit, so I'm starting to feel it. But there's a couple of signs that I'm familiar with, because it's happened once that I double dosed myself by accident. What happens is I sweat, but not just sweat, it's like this profuse sweating that just pours down. And I start to see little colors in the air, like in my eyes. And then I usually know I'm about to go. I wasn't used to the weight here, so my lungs weren't getting Like, at least if someone's doing this, you're still breathing through your nose. But here, it was like I had that, my space was, so I could only get a very shallow breath. Like he was choking me.
Were you saying anything to him, like this isn't fun or stop?
No, because again, the nature of the play, it's called breath control. There is some play that I'm familiar with around that. So it didn't strike me as anything odd. It still was within the boundaries of trust until I started to, they call it swirl, and that's before you pass out. And then nothing until I woke up. So I wake up and I hear the roommate is well inside the apartment. I can hear in the kitchen something being like pots or something. So I turned to him and I said, "Oh, your roommate's home."
Bruce's roommate had come home earlier than expected.
Then I said, "Perhaps we should do this another day." And that was kind of, because I didn't think anything wrong was happening, but I was uncomfortable with how things were progressing.
Bruce lets him leave. He even gives him a ride back downtown.
I may have to his face been, oh yeah, let's do this again. But it was like, no, we're not doing this again.
Meanwhile, Andrew Kinsman's disappearance, along with the other missing men, had continued to stump investigators. But Detective Dave Dickinson had just discovered a critical clue.
Andrew had a traditional calendar on his desk, and on the date he went missing, on June 26th, he had a couple appointments, and one had said just the name Bruce. So with the red van that we observed on the surveillance video, and with that name Bruce, we were able to go to the Ministry of Transportation and request all of the Dodge Caravans in Ontario, in essence.
He got the list down to 5 Bruces.
I ultimately looked into the backgrounds of all 5 of those Bruces and got to Bruce McArthur.
And that's when he came across Isaac's police statement.
There was an occurrence from 2016 where he was involved in an assault in the back of that van. So that occurrence was very important to me because from that one piece of evidence, from that one occurrence, I knew that Bruce McArthur had committed previous assaults in that van, and 2, he was a gay man.
What did you do with that information, with that complaint that was made from 2016? Had it been properly investigated, or what did you find out?
That wasn't my job to look at the time. Obviously, when we started looking at Bruce McArthur, my focus was on Bruce McArthur. I did not know the relationship that this victim had with Bruce McArthur, or presently had. We couldn't reach out to that victim during the investigation with fear that that victim may talk to Bruce McArthur.
But that incident in 2016 was not the only time police had recently spoken to Bruce McArthur.
And it was at that time that another member of the team, Josh McKenzie, immediately recognized that he had, I interviewed Bruce McArthur in 2013 as part of Project Houston.
Why was he brought in for an interview in 2013?
Bruce was brought in as a witness in 2013, just like many others. But during that interview, he admitted to being friends or acquaintance with Skanda Navaratnam and Majid Kayan.
Investigators confirm that the van seen picking up Andrew Kinsman was the same van that belonged to Bruce McArthur. Bruce is put under surveillance.
You know, there were lots of times where I would be driving to work and thinking, are we on the right guy? Like, he's a landscaper. He's just driving around blowing leaves.
Months go by without an arrest, and police maintain there is no serial killer operating in Toronto's gay village.
There is no evidence that the serial killer is responsible for the disappearance of any of the missing males.
There were a lot of things that were swirling out in the public. The fact that there was a serial killer that was out there. The evidence does not point to that. The evidence does not suggest that.
At that time, Bruce McArthur was only a suspect in Andrew Kinsman's murder, no more. He was no different than any other murderer that I investigated.
But it would quickly become clear just how different he was. After connecting the van to McArthur, they had traced it to this auto parts shop just outside of Toronto, seized it, and found blood inside.
As an investigative team, you strategize and try to determine if evidence still existed, where would that evidence be? So a decision was made to obtain a warrant, to covertly enter his apartment and do a physical search of his apartment, but also obtain copies of his computer.
What they found on his computer, along with blood found in the van, made an arrest imminent.
We had our surveillance on him, and at approximately just before 10 o'clock in the morning, I received a telephone call from my investigators who were out with their surveillance and told me that Bruce McArthur had picked up a mail and looked like he was heading back to his apartment.
The gruesome discoveries that reveal Bruce McArthur's horrific crimes and what he may have had planned for Isaac and Sean. That's after the break. An arrest is imminent when Bruce McArthur is spotted bringing a man back to his apartment. Now back to Catherine McDonald with I Survived a Serial Killer.
I left the office very quickly. I wasn't far from the address and drove very fast down to Bruce McArthur's apartment where we took the elevator up to his floor, knocked on his door with the intention of forcing our way in should we have to, but he answered the door and was arrested.
This is Global News at 5:30.
A sense of horror in Toronto's Church and Wellesley Village tonight. A 66-year-old man is behind bars tonight. A suspected serial killer accused of murdering 2 missing men. And tonight, police say there might even be more victims.
This morning at approximately 10:25 a.m., police arrested 66-year-old Bruce McArthur. He's killed at least 2 people that we know of, and we believe there are more victims.
Initially, police had not yet found the victims' bodies and were not disclosing the cause of death. Searches were underway at 4 different properties in and around Toronto, and soon, the discovery of human remains. You got the remains of 3 people, but you say he is responsible for the first-degree murder of 5. Was Mr. McArthur cataloging his victims? Is that how you're able to say these are the 5 people you believe he killed?
Again, as I've said, the remains that we've recovered are of victims who were dismembered. There's at least the remains of 3 people amongst those body parts.
But you have names of 5 people. You say so how are you able to come to those names? Did he actually leave a list?
I can't comment on that.
It wasn't a list that police had found on Bruce McArthur's computer, but rather folders.
Ultimately, photographs of deceased men were located on his computer, which made him arrestable for murder. We identified that he had categorized folders for the men that he had murdered. Some men that we did not even know who they were at that time.
When news broke of Bruce McArthur's arrest, Sean was at home with his partner.
He came in with his iPad and just went, this is him, and it was full face, and that's when I went, oh my God. At this point, I'm still thinking that I was just not involved on any deeper level than we tried to hook up, it didn't work out. That's what I thought. And then the next morning, the phone rang.
Sean Crimebeat was an individual who we identified because his photographs were on Bruce McArthur's computer.
It was Detective Hernandez, and she was telling me that I had vital information for this case, and if I would come in for an interview.
We were following up with Sean Crimebeat when we identified his photographs to, first of all, make sure that he was alive and he had not been a victim, and secondly, that someone that we would be interviewing later in life, post-arrest, to hopefully help us with some evidence against Bruce McArthur.
What kind of things did you learn from this detective?
That I learned that I was unconscious and bound, and that the murder weapon was up against my throat. I knew it was a pipe. I said, how close was I to being killed? And that's when her eyes welled up with tears, and she, in a very shaky voice, just said, I'm just so happy you're here. Her last thing was to me is that she goes, you are the only person that knows this piece of information. What goes on behind, when the door closes to the bedroom, I was the only person that was alive.
What's it like being back?
I haven't been here since the last day when we finished the search warrant.
Do we know if this is where he killed the people, or?
Yeah, some of the men were killed there, yes.
And you remember walking him out that day? You remember?
Yeah, I walked them out, and there was a police car parked right where those flowers were, and put him in the marked police car right there.
He was getting away with this for so long.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, for many, many years.
Bruce McArthur would eventually be charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder for the killings of Skander Raja Navaratnam, Abdul Bazir Faizi, Majid Kayhan, Sarush Mahmoodi, Karushna Kumar Kanagaratnam, Dean Litsowick, Salim Essen, and Andrew Kinsman. Most of the men had ties to the gay village. Several were married and leading double lives. 2 of them had never been reported missing. The dismembered remains of Bruce McArthur's victims discovered at one address, the home of a landscaping client with whom he had exchanged work for equipment storage. The remains were found in planters around the house. While other remains were found in the backyard.
When he got arrested, and I felt strange, after what he did to me, and the next day a call from the police, come on down, let's have a little talk. They had a lot of very detailed questions.
But this is now a year and a half later. You went to the police, you called the police. Are you wondering to yourself, what happened to my case?
Yeah, because nobody called me back. I guess for a few months after that, as the bodies started piling up, I would find myself having to sit down. It got pretty bad. I was exasperated. I was thinking about how close I came. He almost had me. After the assault, every day when I came home, I'd be looking through my driveway to make sure he's not there. And even after he was arrested, I still kept looking. I kept looking for a long time.
There were mixed emotions among residents of the village. Relief that Bruce McArthur had been caught, but also frustration that it took so long for investigators to connect the dots. A sense that the case wasn't initially taken seriously because many of the victims were gay, many of them newcomers to Canada.
Knowing that there was one amongst us for such a long period of time and the police were totally inactive is disappointing and saddening for our community.
Obviously as an investigator, could I do things differently? Would I have done things differently knowing what I know now? Absolutely.
Specifically preying on people that are sometimes labeled as vulnerable. Racialized people, refugees and immigrants, people struggling with their sexuality and addictions and mental health, people who identify as gay or don't, people the perpetrator thought no one would miss. But we do miss them, and we do remember them.
Coming up, what will justice look like for the families and friends of Bruce McArthur's 8 victims? Serial killer Bruce McArthur has finally been caught. the dismembered remains of his victims, discovered at the home of a landscaping client. Now back to Catherine McDonald with the conclusion of I Survived a Serial Killer.
On January 29, 2019, McArthur pleaded guilty to all 8 counts of first-degree murder.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Farah Nasser.
I'm Alan Carter. A sense of grim finality from the courts tonight. Bruce McArthur admitting to his heinous crimes.
So that means no more alleged, no more accused, no more charged. Just this simple reality. Bruce McArthur murdered 8 innocent men.
Now he stands among the worst serial killers in Canadian history. Catherine McDonald was in court today. Catherine.
Well, it was a day of anticipation and anxiety for families of the victims. We sat in a courtroom for roughly 40 minutes before Bruce McArthur walked in, his head down, in handcuffs, and he finally pleaded guilty 8 times to 8 counts of first-degree murder. And then it was like a collective sigh of relief came over the courtroom.
As an investigator, it was a good moment. I made sure that I sat as close as I could to him, and I looked him straight in the eye every time he said guilty.
I wanted him to see me. See the look in my eyes.
Did he look at you?
No. He had his head down the whole time. He looked at the floor.
After the guilty plea, Crown Attorney Michael Cantlin read out a brief statement of facts, telling the court that during each of the murders, one or more of the following factors were present: planning and deliberation, a murder committed in the course of sexually assaulting the victims, or a murder committed while the victims were unlawfully confined.
What did it say in the facts about you? What did he admit to?
He just admitted that he was trying to kill me. He was trying to strangle me to death. I wanted to yell at him. It took all my effort not to get up and say something.
I was in the front row, so I had a clear side view of his face. And I just couldn't believe that was the same person. And then when they showed the footage of Andrew getting in the van, that was very difficult for her. Because I picture my last, like how I walked to the van, and like, it was so similar, like just, you know, don't think anything's around the corner, and it's just like, that would have been it.
We, myself and the investigative team, are pleased that Mr. McArthur has pled guilty today, sparing the community and those who knew the victims a lengthy trial. We did this because we wanted answers too, and I hope we brought some closure.
67-year-old Bruce McArthur was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. If he lives that long, he will be 91 years old.
8 lives. It deserves more than 25 years. Those are 8 people that won't have a future.
Had we gone to trial, you know, some of these cases might have been pieced off. They may not have been heard because, you know, the logic might have been, well, if he gets convicted of one, he's still going to die in prison.
After sentencing, it wasn't just investigators reflecting on the case. The police force enacted new measures aimed at preventing another Bruce McArthur scenario by creating a new missing persons unit.
There still are divisional missing person investigators, but there is one unit that kind of has the bigger picture to oversee everything, to make sure that all are kind of being handled in a standardized process. And, you know, having that bigger picture, they can identify, you know, certain trends or certain anomalies that might need to be looked at.
And new scrutiny around how the Bruce McArthur case was handled early on. The Toronto police officer, Sergeant Paul Gauthier, who investigated Isaac's complaint in 2016, is accused of professional misconduct, charged with insubordination and neglect of duty. It's alleged that Gauthier failed to comply with the force's internal domestic violence policy, which requires a victim's statement to be videotaped and that photographs of the injuries be taken within 72 hours. Sergeant Paul Gauthier has pleaded not guilty to the disciplinary charges. In a letter sent to Global News by a police source back in the spring of 2019, Sergeant Gauthier wrote, "There have been many sleepless nights thinking about McArthur's unspeakable crimes, his victims, and their families. and the fact that my employer has effectively set me up to be their fall guy for all this, simply because they need a scapegoat. Gauthier also wrote that a proper investigation was completed. The staff sergeant agreed with me and authorized McArthur be released, and that the required supplementary report was completed and available to all Toronto police officers to access via a simple name search. The Toronto Police Service says it's unable to provide a comment, given this matter is currently before the police tribunal.
So you can't speak about why Isaac's case was mishandled, can you?
No, I won't. I mean, that's something that's being investigated right now, and that's not my job.
Had that case those charges been brought, you can't speak to that?
You can't speak to that.
It's a hypothetical?
It's hypothetical, just like, I have the benefit of hindsight, and I have the benefit of knowing what I know now. So back then, you don't know.
But what Isaac did by calling police was key to this investigation.
100%. That occurrence, the whole report, was extremely key to me identifying Bruce McArthur as a person of interest back then in Andrew Kinsman's disappearance. If it had not been for that report, Bruce McArthur may have just been another Bruce on that list of vans that had no background or no contact with the Toronto Police.
What should happen to Gauthier?
If he had followed full procedures, I don't think anything would have happened anyhow. They would have put their Project Prism together, and they might have gotten him a little bit sooner, but the damage had already been done.
There were 6 victims before you.
Yeah. I was almost number 7, so.
But they could have saved 2 more, perhaps.
Yeah, it is a little hard. I feel bad for the Essens and the Kingsmen.
What did you think of how the police handled the case?
I truly believe the police, other than a few mistakes that were made by individuals, the police did an amazing job. It was a needle in a haystack.
You know what I think about? I see the faces of all the dead men. So that's what's in my mind a lot. When I start thinking about it, I think about all the pictures I would put up. That's the first thing that starts running through my head, is all their faces. It makes me feel very bad.
You do what you do to survive. I had people coming up to me and say, "Oh, you should have punched him in the face." Well, you weren't there, so shut up. The guilt and all of that, I get it. Even the roommate who I met, he's got a lot of guilt too. And I think there's probably many people involved, either directly and some indirectly. It's really affected people deeply. Like the gay, besides the gay community, it's been a major ripple effect. The healing process has given me a whole new light to my life in a positive way. If someone in your life has made a difference and put you in a better direction, you call them, write down a letter today. Don't wait for them almost to be killed, because it's too late. And you never know when that could happen.
As part of his healing, Sean has dedicated himself to promoting internet safety, especially when online dating. He recommends before going to meet someone, take a screenshot of their profile and send it to someone you trust, along with the place you're meeting and when you expect to return. He also calls for us to stop judging each other so that nobody feels ashamed to share this type of information with one another, making it safer for everyone. I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crimebeat.
Want more episodes of Crimebeat? Listen to my Crimebeat podcast now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.